Shalom, Yashrala. This is your brother Dawada, coming back at you with this here truth again. First and foremost, I want to give all praise unto Yahawah, Bahashim, YAHAWASHI, Bahashim, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And salutation and much love for you, I can pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. So I want to jump into this here article, which is pretty much like a continuation of what was pretty much going on through the spirit all last week about these uprisings and uproars of the people. It's just more and more countries now being added to the list. This is a worldwide so-called phenomena, but in all actuality, this is the prophecies of the Lord that's speaking right now, man. All right, because why? You hear a lot of our, the men of the Lord on the highways and the byways and on their video epistles constantly repeat the same thing, and people always saying, y'all keep talking about the same thing over and over again, or this ain't gonna happen. But now we're in the times where all these prophecies are speaking, man. If not, they all screaming at the door. All right. In fact, today in the news feed, there's more than one article dealing with these different protests, in different places. But nevertheless, this is one of them that pretty much talks about a lot of different ones. All right. So this one says, "World in flames. Why are protests raging around the globe?" All right, because ultimately it's the prophecies of YAHAWASHI coming to pass. All right. It says protests and demonstrations have rocked every corner of the world in recent days. All right, and you see what I'm saying? This is basically how do they say of apocalyptic proportion. All right, because ultimately, this is the prophecies being revealed, man. All right, this is what the whole world's been waiting for. The return of the Lord. These different signs. All right, now the Lord wasn't going to come back where it was just so-called peace and tranquility all on the earth, man. The conditions of the earth will be so bad, and how do I say, in every different sector, more or less to say, just like if you got a car, right? If you got a car and you just so happen to have a flat tire, that's just one thing wrong with your car. Well, I just got a flat tire. But now imagine you got a flat tire, an oil leak, a gas leak, power steering leak, the belt's all fucked up in your car, the windows don't go down in your car, the AC don't work in your car, your front windshield busted. Your whole car's pretty much fucked at this point in time. You got so much shit wrong with your car, man. You might as well just go get a new car, all right? It's not just one problem, all right? And that's pretty much what's going on right now, man. It's not just one or two protests going on here and there. It's pretty much all over the globe. And it's not just the protests that's going on, all right? You also got the protests going on. You got Californians expect, they said for the first time, I believe in like 500 years or something like that, that major fault line, they had some movement out there, all right? So they still expecting a real big one out there in California, man. All right, but nevertheless, you got earthquakes and volcanoes going off, in diverse places. All right, uproars of the people, which we getting into with this. World War III still stirring up. You also have the mark of the beast being heavily pushed right now. All right, so all the end time prophecies. Hey, you seeing Jacob's trouble being also stirred up as well too with all these police shootings. So and ultimately you seeing Esau coming down, with that great wrath, because he has but a short time. So you seeing all these here prophecies starting to speak, and they speaking out loudly, all right? But it says protests and demonstrations have rocked every corner of the world in recent days, with tax hikes, corruption, and supposed environmental injustice all raising public anger. But why have they spread? Watching the news over the last week, one would be convinced that the world has devolved into a series of flashpoints with corrupt governments across the political spectrum facing the wrath of their enraged citizens. To be fair, that's not their fault. That's not far from the truth. And ultimately, what's going on is, the earth was given into the hand of the wicked. All right, Esau, Edom. Esau has taken over the whole goddamn planet Earth. All right, even in these other countries, right? They have puppet governments. They set up their own. Matter of fact, the shit that's going on in Venezuela, right? So if you understand what's going on in Venezuela, America is pushing a propaganda over there, making it basically a bunch of lies. They're lying on Nicolas Maduro. All right, they're trying to steal the resources, which is the oil over in Venezuela, because I think they have the largest oil deposits, all right, on the globe, like the most in reserve in the deposits. All right, but nevertheless, America wants to take that, so they spreading propaganda, putting sanctions on them and holding their funds, freezing their funds, so they can't, the government makes its money off of selling oil. So if they can't get the money back in, then they can't pay for the government services that they have. All right. But nevertheless, they setting up this here propaganda to do what? To cause an uprising amongst the people, for the people to hate the government, so they can overthrow the government, which is Nicolas Maduro's government. All right. And install America's puppet government, which America's backing this guy, Juan Guaido or Guido. All right. Now, nevertheless, this is a puppet set up by Esau. All right, this is nothing more than just a proxy that they got, ruling over there in that area. All right. But nevertheless, like I said, a lot of these world leaders, even if they might look like those people over there, you know what I'm saying? Or you may perceive them to be of that nation or whatever, whatnot, sometimes they actually are Edomites, you know what I'm saying? Because it would be nothing for these an Edomite male to have a child with whatever nation it is, and then the child will come out looking like that. But nevertheless, you know, especially if they're of a darker race, if anybody but having a baby with an Edomite, you know, the baby's going to look a little less like an Edomite, you know, because the dominant gene from the other nations, you know what I'm saying, they're going to put some melanin inside that child. All right. But nevertheless, at the end all be all, they still Edomites. All right. And they're still pushing this Edomite agenda. So no matter what they look like, at the end all be all, you know, a lot of these so-called corrupt governments that you see going on around earth is because of the fact of either A, America's pushing their propaganda on these, not to say, but these like sovereign nations and sovereign leaders, but nevertheless, the actual leaders that's over there, all right, and wanting to install their own puppet leader, like the case in Venezuela. Or you may have an actual puppet leader that was set up by the Americans, all right, that's actually ruling over in their nation, all right, that they having to basically drain all the resources out of the country for them, all right. And now, like the scripture also say, roughly paraphrasing, like how our leader is how the people going to be. They're going to be wicked, just like, you know, if they corrupt, the people going to be corrupt. But not only that, when a leader takes it too far, all right, and is wicked and corrupted, all right, the people start mourning, all right. Then they get fed up with that, and they do what? They decide to overthrow the government because they can't take it no more, all right. Just like what you have here in America, man. You know, the cost of living has went up sky high, and your income has not really increased that much. So everybody here is living paycheck to paycheck, you know. And so people can't really afford things from day to day. So now people are living on edge. And so, you know, they're more likely to rebel against their government, you know, have these protests or whatever, whatnot. You know, this is why you see companies go on strike and things like that. You know, you see people, let's say McDonald's, right? People want a minimum wage raise at McDonald's. So they like, oh, we're going on strike. There's a company right now that's doing that. I think General Motor employees are on strike right now. You know what I'm saying? Because they want higher wages, and they want, you know, future payments, you know, like a pension, more or less, to say something similar to that, you know. But nevertheless, this is why a lot of these people are uprising, because why? The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. That's how the earth is being ruled, all right? It says, watching the news over the last week, one would be convinced that the world has devolved into a series of flashpoints with corrupt governments across the political spectrum facing wrath of their enraged citizens. To be fair, that's not far from the truth. 4 continents have seen anti-government demonstrations over the last week, many of them sparked by seemingly innocuous taxes or changes to the law. In Lebanon, protesters have set Beirut ablaze in response to a proposed fee of 20 cents per day on internet voice calls, dubbed WhatsApp tax, all right? And now this was, they pretty much set Beirut on fire the other day, all right? Nevertheless, you know, that was, let me see, they don't have that article linked here. But nevertheless, this was, I believe, Thursday or Friday that this happened. All right. It says Chileans set metro stations on fire following a $1.17 increase in public transport fees. The streets of Ecuador are filled with rubble after planned removal of fuel subsidies triggered mass unrest. Elsewhere, perennial corruption was the West Africa's has the West African nations of Liberia in a state of near constant protests. A change to presidential terms limits the Guinea caused deadly riots. Mexicans are demonstrating against corruption and drug cartel violence, and mass rioters in Hong Kong are still rallying against their government months after the withdrawal of the Chinese extradition bill that sparked their anger. Europe, meanwhile, has seen a general strike and mass marches from Barcelona following the jailing of Catalonia independence leaders on Monday. Dutch farmers have also shut down the country's motorways after the government introduced new emissions regulations in France. Already rocked by almost a year of yellow vest demonstrations, thousands of firefighters have marched for more funding and better working conditions. All right. So look, you know, hey, this is really a snare that Esau is really in, because he's the one that's stirring up these goddamn protests. But ultimately, you know, he's thinking he's going to turn, you know, this one way you can enact martial law, you know, pretty much prod the people, you know what I'm saying? Like you create some kind of bullshit, you know, with the laws or whatever, whatnot. You stage a fake ass protest with George Soros and a propaganda, you know, media arms or whatever, whatnot. So they'll go on stage, a couple people out there protesting, and put this on the internet. Hey, we're going out there protesting. You know, they may have like 100 different people that they didn't pay to go out there and protest, and maybe 5 real people might show up. Now, out of those 100 actors, they might have, you know, a couple of those people to incite some chaos or whatever, whatnot, you know, come, you know, And when you follow it all the way out, it's only 110 people there. 100 of them been paid to be there. 10 of them actually was like, oh, let's go see what the fuck is going on. And then 100 of them is over here causing problems. And now the police is over here pretty much pushing back and fighting, you know, the actual 10 other people that was there. You know, now they put this on TV. Now the people, the actual people that's over there, they see this and they, you know, they're up, you know, they're pretty much in an uproar over that. So then they start going out to the streets, and now the government is fighting back more and more and more and more. But then once the government, you know, is out there fighting for so long, like in France, all right, where the government is wearing masks now and they're in fear of their neighbors finding out that they're police officers because of the type of treatment that they're getting, all right, for working all these long, extended hours, highly stressed, because the normal police officer's not dealing with this type of stress on a regular day, man. Like you see in those bigger cities where you got the bike cops and stuff, they're not really seeing no type of shit like this every day, man. Even the regular patrol cars, you know, they're just pulling people over here and there. Every once in a while, they get a little drug bust or whatever. And that's why you see people who, like, when they, you know, you have somebody get pulled over for some recreational drug usage. They got some recreational drugs on them, or somebody that's got like a DUI on them. They pull them over and they be searching they shit like as if they actually trafficking tons and tons and tons of drugs into the country. You know what I'm saying? Because that's really the excitement of their whole job. They're not really finding nothing big or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, just imagine dealing with these riots and these protests every single day. You know, for the most part, police officers, you know, just look at it. Well, we're not gonna look at it here because we know that it's just Esau shooting Jake down. But you know, the police don't really have to really worry about too many people resisting. You know, and then when they do, it's normally one person resisting, and they got like 5 cops over there trying to take them down. All right, but now you in a scenario now where you have the population is way greater than the police force. All right, and the whole population, all right, or the protesting population is all out there resisting. All right, so now they actually had a full-on conflict throughout the whole damn day. Now, they've been doing this for a whole goddamn year just about, man. So these police officers is finding it's hard for them to cope. They quitting their jobs, committing suicide. Some of them are actually going on rampages they goddamn self because they say this is unjust and corrupt, man. All right? But nevertheless, hey, in Hong Kong, they had the damn police barricaded in the police station, and the police was calling the police to get some damn help. And then the backup police wasn't even coming to get their ass, so they was just barricaded in the police station while they was over there throwing Molotov cocktails at their ass, man. All right? But nevertheless, continuing on, it says, protests can break out over relatively minor issues from spiraling into national crisis. French President Emmanuel Macron learned this the hard way last November when demonstrations over a fuel tax hike turned into a nationwide rejection of the corporate-friendly policies. Likewise, Lebanon's WhatsApp tax was simply the final straw for protesters who have now called for the downfall of the regime following years of perceived government imputude. All right. And while Chilean students kicked off the fare hike protests earlier this month, violent anti-government riots have since broken out, with at least 8 people killed in arsons and looting attacks, and the military was called out to enforce a curfew, which is also known as martial law. All right, so all these people who thinking, you know, when we talk about this, y'all are crazy. That can't happen here in America. Hey, man, you got everything here in America that's like, you know, in every different lane, we walking on eggshells before we get martial law, man. All right, the police shootings over here in America, all right, is you know, got the people on edge for martial law, man. All right, the you know, Donald Trump and his racism got people on edge for martial law. Economic collapse because they talking about a recession every other day over here in America, man. All right, bringing in martial law, man. All right, people just can't afford certain things, and the foods and everything going up, and people losing their jobs, man. Unemployment is at a sky-high rate right now, despite what they tell you on the goddamn TV, man. All right, because they'll tell you, oh, unemployment is fine right now. We've created all these jobs. And in fact, they have created a lot of jobs, and they have employed a lot more people. You know, a lot more people actually do have jobs today than they did, you know, right beforehand. All right, but what type of jobs did they create, man? They created all these goddamn Uber jobs, Lyft jobs, Grubhub jobs, DoorDash jobs. These ain't jobs that you can sustain your family and feed your kids off of, man. So yet and still, yeah, they added a bunch of jobs, but these jobs ain't, you're not really raising a family working at Uber. You see what I'm saying? And most people that's doing those app-based jobs got to get about 3 or 4 of those gigs, and those are all part-time gigs, man. All right? You can't lose your job being a damn doctor and decide to go drive for Uber or some shit to replace your job, you know, driving as a doctor, man. All right? Now, you having a lot of people that's doing this. Beforehand, they called it underemployment, all right, where you had a lot of doctors and stuff that was forced after the 2008 collapse. No, not just doctors, but people who had better paying jobs and skilled labor, all right? Whereas they wound up losing their jobs, all right, and they still had bills and things to pay for. So what? The only jobs they could find, because everybody was out looking for jobs, was what? jobs like delivering pizza, working at McDonald's, all right? So these people are overqualified, all right, meaning they got a degree and they're working at a job that doesn't require a degree. Like you basically went to school to be a heart surgeon, but now you're working at McDonald's. You overqualified for the job that you at, and you being underpaid, because it's like, yo, man, last year I was, for the last 5-10 years, I've been making $70,000-$80,000 a year. Now I'm making $13,000 a year, man. All right, so therefore you underemployed. So these are all things that could enact a riot or a protest here in America. All right, that can also lead to martial law, which we all know that this is all coming here to Babylon the Great, man. All right, this is what's going to be the end all be all here in America, man. But the one difference between couple differences between America and all these other countries is, not to say all these countries are third world countries, some of them are second world countries, whatever, whatnot, but nevertheless, America's like a first world country, all right? Meaning that America's not really, like, put it in perspective. Here in America, you can go buy you some food, cooked food, 24 hours a day in America, for damn near everywhere here in America, man. Damn near everywhere in America, you can find a goddamn McDonald's. Not saying you should eat McDonald's, but 24 hours a day here in America, you could at least find McDonald's and eat McDonald's 24 hours a day, man. All right, you can go into a 7-Eleven 24 hours a day, go find you probably eat a McDonald's or what you call this shit, 7-Eleven or a YAHAWAH or some shit. You can go to Walmart, go grocery shopping 24 hours a day. You can go and buy and consume 24 hours a day. All right, you have all these different things that's 24 hours a day here in America, man. But we're going to just stick with the food. So if Americans have the luxury to eat at whatever pleasure that they want, they could just stop and eat. They could just do whatever, whatnot, throw away all kind of food in abundance, They just throw away so much food, man. All right, now imagine when this here collapse happens, then people who are used to being able to go into 7-Eleven or Walmart 24 hours a day, McDonald's 24 hours a day, and just eat whenever their stomachs start growling. You know what I'm saying? Now, what we Americans aren't programmed to survive like that, man. They're not, programmed to survive. Well, we only eat one meal a day. We only eat whenever we bring in stuff from the fields. This is how we living, And those poor countries where you be looking at them like, oh, they eating out the trash, they eating this and that, whatever, whatnot. They'll live a lot longer without no goddamn food. But you Americans ain't gonna really last that long because you used to being able to eat whenever you want, man. All right, but nevertheless, these things are brewing right here in America, man. Another thing that separate America from these other countries. A lot of these countries, it's illegal to have a gun in. All right, so the citizens don't really have guns. All right, but yet they mad and they riot, and you see them making Molotov cocktails, which is basically gasoline in a bottle with a rag in that bitch, and you just throw it at somebody and the shit catch on fire, right? But nevertheless, here in America, they got more guns here in America than they got human beings. All right, so just imagine that, man. All right, so when, you see these riots and these protests come out, and then these people going to start rioting and protesting, but they're going to come out there with their guns, man. They're going to come out there strapped, bro. All right, now when everybody out there strapped, shooting at everybody, you know what I'm saying, shooting at the police, what do you think the police response is going to be, man? They're going to bring in that heavy artillery, which is going to bring in martial law, man. All right, but continuing on, it says, so why has unrest seemingly erupted over the world at once? According to the University of Arizona study, protest is contagious. The study's author found that violent domestic conflict spread between countries via spillover effects and now desire to emulate events abroad. Nonviolent movements, too, spread across the borders in a similar fashion, with researchers noting that the observation of collective actions abroad inspired to be protesters at home. In reality, it's Esau, man. Esau's the one doing this. Oh, shit, this protest worked over here. Let's see if it'll work over here. Plus, with social media, they got all these things going on. You got all these fake-ass activists, standing up, oh, this is wrong, this is right, this is that. And so when you have fake-ass activists that's going on these certain tips or whatever, whatnot, like with the alphabet group, they'll jump up and scream, they need their rights, they have their rights, they should be able to do this and that. But then when you flip it around to somebody else that don't believe the same beliefs that they have, they're not trying to fight for their rights, they're being hypocrites, So you have these fake-ass activists out there who's rioting and protesting and screaming over, fictional events, all right? When certain wise minds would understand, like, yeah, this ain't quite real. You know what I'm saying? This is some shit the government will pull over some bullshit like this. We're not gonna go out there like that with this, so on and so forth. Like the Black Lives Matter situation. That was set up by a white man named George Soros, a so-called white man, an Edomite, all right, named George Soros. All right, he was the creator of that for his own purpose. But what? He swindled some black people, some so-called black people, to go in there and lead that cause. And he also used those people to lead other so-called black people astray with that, all right? But this was a fake-ass movement created by the so-called white man just to justify him coming down and labeling us as terrorists, all right? It says the Chinese government has pointed the fingers squarely at Hong Kong for inspiring similar protests elsewhere. An editorial at the state-run Global Times on Sunday accused Hong Kong demonstrators of exporting revolution to the world while former Chinese diplomat Wang Xing wrote in Beijing News that disastrous impact of a chaotic Hong Kong has begun to influence the Western world. And really, ultimately, what was really needed to be said there is Esau's influence, his wickedness is being spread across the world, man. But this is also his time, man. It's like, you know, you eating something, right? Or you drinking, right? Let's just say you drinking, right? You drinking alcohol, right? You can start drinking some alcohol and shit, right? You get a little tipsy, you get a little buzz, whatever, whatnot, you know. Or first, let's say you take a shot, you know what I'm saying? And you take that shot and then you make that little face or whatever, whatnot. And you keep on taking shots or whatever, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Eventually, you're going to get them groggy eyes. Ooh, shit. I'm going to slow down a little bit. But then you keep taking shots, right? Now, you've already got to a certain point to where your stomach is to the point where it can't hold no more of that alcohol. And it's already starting to boil up. It's getting to this pressure points. And then now, the vomit is being put into motion before it starts exiting your body. You might not be throwing up right here now in this second, but within the next 2 to 3 to 4 minutes, your ass going to be over that toilet, you know what I'm saying, throwing up. It's already starting to boil and spill over. This is pretty much the same thing that's going on right now, man. Esau knows he has but a short time, but ultimately he's going to try to put, implement his new world order by also collapsing these economies, have a global martial law pretty much go into place, all right, and also a world war go in place as well, too, just to, you know, problem, reaction, solution, all this chaos and so on and so forth, erupting around the world, all these sovereign nations with all this diplomacy and so on and so forth can't control their individual countries without all these things spilling over. Let's just make a nationalized, a globalized system for everybody to take heed to, all right? This is how he order out of chaos, problem, reaction, solution. This is the Hegelian dialectus, all right? This is how Esau plans to implement his system. But what? The Most High said he's going to vomit up that which he labored for when he's about to fill his belly, all right? You know, I'm not going to read any more on this. It goes down and more into this. But nevertheless, let me grab a couple scriptures real quick and we'll close out. Because like I said, this is all in the scriptures. This is all prophesied in the scriptures that these things would be all signs. Let me read this. This is Luke 21:7. And they asked him, saying, Master, but when shall these things be, and what sign will there be when these things shall come to pass? All right. Now, basically, the question that's asked here, we normally read this in Matthew 24, right? Now, when you go to Matthew 24, I believe you can start like verse 3, right? Where, you know, he took the disciples on the Mount of Olives and he spoke to them privately, saying, or they asked a question, right? So this is the same question being asked: what shall be the signs of thy coming and, you know, the end of the world? All right. And basically, what was the answer is this. It says, let me skip verse 8 and go to verse 9. It says, but when you shall hear of wars and commotions, all right, now in Matthew 24, all right, we read it all the time. It says, when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, all right, and we're also in that same time we're hearing of wars and rumors of wars. This is why you're hearing about Turkey in America right now. You know, they going tit for tat over the Kurd, really the Turks over there trying to take out the Kurds, you know. You also have tensions rising between America and Russia, America and China, you know, over economics and things like that. America trying to get up into Venezuela. All right. So these are rumors of wars, all right, amongst these different nations. All right. But continuing on, it says, but when you should hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by. Then said he unto them, nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. All right. Now, a nation against another nation would be pretty much like, let me think of a scenario like that. You know, Jacob versus Esau, you know, those are two different nations battling it out against one another. All right. Or let's say Esau and Moab. Those are two different nations thugging it out with one another. All right. But then also it says and kingdom against kingdom. All right. Now you can have two different kingdoms battling it out, and they don't necessarily have to be two different nations. All right. So for instance, you can have well, we know eventually this is going to take place where the beast is going to hate the whore. All right. But you could have like let's say France or Germany versus America. Well, they both Edomites, but they're two different kingdoms, right? And they're both Edomites, but then yet and still they, both going at each other, all right? So, or like America and Russia, those are two, they're both Edomites, but then they're both basically at each other's throat right now, But then also you have America versus China. Those are two different nationalities of people. Then you got two different kingdoms of people, all right? But going back up, well, let me just keep going. Verse 11. And great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, and famines, And speaking on the great earthquakes, again, just to mention again about that move, you know, they said the first movement in about 500 years at the, you know, that one fault line over in California, that they're expecting the big one to come from. All right. Also speaking about famines, over the last week, man, we just had the most craziest weather that I can remember in the longest time, man. You go from goddamn summertime temperatures to just snowing in certain places, man. A lot of places we had a fuckload of blizzards just take place, man. All right, and in the Midwest you had a lot of crop losses, total losses of a lot of crops, man. All right, not only did we started off with a slow year when it comes time to planting, but just now when it's almost time to harvest, all right, there was a blizzard come out of nowhere, man. Temperatures in certain places went from 80 degrees to 19 degrees in the same day. All right, when the sun came up that day, it got to a high 80-something degrees, but before the sun went down, it got to, you know, as low as 19 degrees. All right, and then blizzards came out and destroyed a lot of the crops out there, man. All right, and pestilence. All right, now you also got an uptick of a lot of these STDs. I was listening into this over the weekend where there was this article coming out saying with these millennials, this younger generation, they're having less sex, but more and more STDs are up on the rise. And, you know, they accounted it for a lot of different things from the social media apps that these young folks are on, and they using that and they hooking up way more and more often because you just have straight, basically sex apps, basically. Just, you know, you go on there and they call them like dating apps, but then you just basically going on there hooking up every damn night, you know. But nevertheless, you know, but another thing is a lot of these people are actually getting vaccinated, you know, and a lot of these vaccines actually have a lot of this shit in there. All right, like that HPV situation, you know, because HPV was, you know, you can't really, they didn't never really talk about this so much beforehand. This wasn't something that was super heavily out there just until a few years ago where they started saying, you know, every female's pretty much got HPV. She's going to get HPV once in her life, so she needs to be vaccinated at the age of 12. And as soon as those vaccines went out, damn near all these you started seeing HPV uprisings with all these women. And a lot of them was getting it from the damn vaccines, which in turn renders them sterile, so they can't have babies, which is also going back into Esau not being able to reproduce. And also with a lot of these other things as well too, where they're these other STDs and things that they're having. They right now have a super STD. I forgot which one it was. I think gonorrhea or some shit like that, you know. And plus they're pushing this out in the minds of the people to where they're like, oh, well, these ain't that bad or whatever, whatnot. It's just this is just that or whatever, whatnot. So people are like, oh, we can get it treated with just a little shot here or there. But they're not realizing that they're basically building your immunity up to these things before they become super bugs, all right? Also, like the flu. They're just pretty much weakening your immune system to these things. So the things that they release, they're not going to be any so-called immunities to these things, all right? But nevertheless, hey, you also seeing all these other kind of sicknesses and these different diseases is just running rampant, not even sexually transmitted disease. They had one that where in this one small town, there was a bunch of middle-aged white women that was drinking just the regular tap water, and these ladies was just dying off. You know what I'm saying? It was only affecting them. You know what I'm saying? Like their husbands could drink the water, so-called black women could drink the water. Everybody else was drinking the same water. It was just a certain age group within these Edomite women that was drinking this shit and just dying off. All right? There's a lot of pestilence going on around the earth right now, man. Let's continue on, going back to verse 11, Luke 21:11. It says, and great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, and famines and pestilence, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. You know, you're seeing more and more chariot sighting increasing. Are you seeing a lot more of these eclipses and blood moons and all type of things like this, especially on our high holy days and things like that, man. All right, now let me jump down just a little bit and go to verse 25. And there shall be, let me go up and read this with that. Luke 21:9. But when thou shalt hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not by and by. So you're hearing commotions, all right, commotions of the people. Now jumping down, 25, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. Again, going back to the eclipses and different things like that. All right, and all these different meteorites and asteroids coming closer to the earth. All right, and upon the earth, distress of nations. All right, going back to those commotions. All right, and it says, and upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity, and the sea and the waves roaring. All right, and that's what you have going on right now. You have a bunch of perplexity and these things going on amongst these different nations, uprising, uproars of the people, man. All these people rising up and protesting against the injustices going on in their you know, the respective nations that they live in, you know. People are getting tired of the oppression and the tyranny that has been going on for so long. So now they're all starting to uprise against this here wickedness, you know, on a worldwide level, on an apocalyptic level, more or less to say. Because why? This was all prophesied, all right? The Most High wasn't talking about just like complexity of nations, just one nation, they just having a little riot or a protest or whatever, whatnot. No, he's talking about worldwide throughout the whole four corners of the earth, where it's not just one place that they can, we're not all watching the news about the yellow vest protests, like the whole world watching France. No, we all watching France, Barcelona, what you call that shit? Hong Kong, Beirut, all these different places all at one time, man. All these different places, you watching these riots and protests and uproars all throughout the world, all at the same time, man. All at the same time. It's all being televised to where people can't even keep up to where they all at, man. All right. Verse 26, men's hearts failing for the fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Verse 28, and when these things begin to come to pass, look up and lift up your head, for your redemption draweth nigh. And going into the last couple verses I just read, 27 and 28, because why? You're going to start seeing the sign of the Lord coming, which is what? These chariots, man. Not only the chariots, but, you see these prophecies, which we're reading right now, which is alluding to what? The coming of the Lord, but also you're going to see this, verse 27, and then they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory, speaking on these chariots. We're seeing more and more sightings of these chariots coming out now, man. So we know it's prime time for the Lord to be coming back, man. All right, we know it's prime time for these things to come to pass right now. All right, I'm gonna close out with this. This is 2 Ezra chapter 9 and verse 1. And he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou shalt see part of the signs pass, which I have told thee, then thou shalt understand it is the very same time when it's the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. All right, and that's when the Lord is coming to visit the earth. We talking about this right now. When we seeing all these signs, the majority of these signs come to pass, man. All right. Verse 3, and when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, and that's what we're seeing right now. Thou shalt well understand. It should be clear as day. This is what the Lord was talking about. That the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. For like all that is made in the world hath the beginning and the end, and the end is manifest. All right, just like a woman when a woman is getting pregnant, Well, when a woman is about to have a baby, just the whole process, You may not see the actual moment, when that sperm is planted inside of that egg, but guess what? The end of that is manifest. When that woman water break, it's clear as day she finna have that baby. You know what I'm saying? When she on that bed and she pushing, it's clear she finna have that baby. When you see that the crown of the head, it's clear as day she finna have that baby. The end of her pregnancy is manifest. When she the moment that sperm fertilizes that egg, is not necessarily seen. All right, but when that baby is about to come, you see her throughout her pregnancy, but yeah, she's pregnant. We might not know the day or the moment she's gonna have that baby, but guess what? When that water break, oh yeah, we know it's the time. The end is here. It's manifest. It's clear as day, man. All right, just like these signs here now, all these uproars and all these different calamities going on around the earth, man. It's clear as day that we living in the times of the end. All right, let me read that again and we'll close out. Verse 5. For like all that is made in the world hath the beginning and the end is manifest. So that even so the times also the highest have plain beginnings and wonders and powerful works and ending and effects and signs. So like I was just going into, it's going to be clear and manifest that, the Most High spake about these things, and these are these prophecies coming to pass, man. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out with that. Lord willing, the elect was edified with this. Until next time, I say, call halal Yahawah, BAHASHIM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHIM, RAKHAKWADASH. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of great millstone that taught us this truth and that rule will. And salutation and much love for you. I can push this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. Until next time, I say, stay strong and shalom.